Do governments break up natural monopolies? For example, if a company is so great that others can't compete and just go to business, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and governments do. I mean, they're elected by the people, for the people, have noble intentions when it comes to monopolies, right? They're not just left wing, whatever. They're trying to help. And so what happened was Bell, Alexander Graham Bell, who founded the telephone. Bell was a massive company and way too powerful, man. It was, oh my God, it completely dominated. And so what happened was, I don't know if you guys all remember, but for those of you that are older like me, remember when long distance and prices for phones cost a fortune? It was because it was really dominated by just a handful of companies. So in the United States, it was Bell. And so the government broke up Bell into many different pieces. The government said, you guys have too much power, so we're going to break you up. We're going to break you up into a long distance company. What do you want to call that? They said, I don't know, we'll call it AT&T. Okay, that's AT&T. We're going to break you up. Also, your Bell Research Division, where you do R&D, we're breaking that up as well. What do you want to call that? Lucent? Okay, Lucent. Great. We're going to break up the West Coast Division. What do you want to call that? Pacific Bell? Okay. We're going to break up even the Canada division. What do you want to call that? Bell Canada? Whatever. You guys get the idea. That's why there's so many different bells. Yeah. And because of that, I think that, the price of telecommunications has come down tremendously. And if the government not done that, then we might not have been using the internet as much as we are today, to be honest. Even though it sounds a little far-fetched. It's just, obviously you need to have cheap telecom prices to use the internet at home. And the government, I think the government eventually is going to break up Amazon too. I think basically it's because Amazon is so powerful now. Like a lot of us don't buy anything anywhere else. Amazon is a giant, and people don't realize that most investors in Amazon own it not for the retail stuff, but because of Amazon software, Amazon Web Services, which powers the internet and is the most deflationary force since the Berlin Wall fell. And do a search online if you care about that. I wrote an article in Wired magazine and VentureBeat on that. But when the Berlin Wall fell, you had all this brilliant, cheaper Eastern European labor moving west. And Alan Greenspan, who presented at a company called Citadel at one of our events years ago, I saw him there. He said the reason we had unprecedented economic growth back in the 90s was because the Berlin Wall fell in 89. And all this cheaper, brilliant Eastern European labor moved west. And the biggest input into making stuff and inflation is labor. So labor prices were kept artificially low. And by the same token, this current generation's Berlin tear down wall event, so to speak, is Amazon Web Services, which is software that Amazon offers to other companies to rent and use online. And so Netflix runs almost entirely, off of Amazon Web Services, and Amazon cuts the pricing point almost every quarter, which is unheard of for a software company. But it's embedded within the DNA subfabric of who Amazon is, the lowest cost producer. And so companies like Netflix can offer great content at a low price because of that. Uber only exists because they run off of Amazon Web Services, which is really, really cheap infrastructure. It's amazing. Same thing with Airbnb, rinse, lather, repeat, many other great tech companies. And so Amazon really is a force to be reckoned with. But I think Amazon will be broken up into two companies eventually. They're a victim of their own success. They're great. And Jeff Bezos is great too. I respect him tremendously. But they'll be broken up, I think, into two different companies eventually. A retail company and then a software company as well. And I think the EU, and God bless the EU, man. Like, people don't get it. But, like, you guys should all watch that speech from Sacha Baron Cohen, the Borat dude. God, that guy's brilliant. He gave a speech, I think, at the NAACP recently on the problem with the Internet 6, and how 6 internet companies are way too powerful, and it's like a propaganda machine. I know it sounds out there, but watch his speech. It was delivered brilliantly. That guy's so smart. It's amazing. But I like the EU because the EU kind of has privacy in mind, and they're very careful when it comes to Google and other tech companies. And I tremendously respect the EU, a regulatory body, for that. Like, for example, I think it's probably because of German influence in Europe in general that, Google Maps, all the faces are blurred and the license plates as well. I'm sure there's other reasons why that occurred. But the EU ensures that, not only do companies not become too powerful like Microsoft, like they forced Microsoft to unbundle Internet Explorer, about 20 years ago or whatever it was, or 19 years ago. And that's a good thing because they're trying to make sure that there's more competition, because competition is good for the consumer. And I remember, a little side note here, I remember Bill Gates when he was testifying in front of the DOJ about not breaking up Bell into the baby bills, or breaking up Microsoft into the baby bills. That's what they called it, like the baby bells. He said, no, Internet Explorer is just like File Manager. And so for those of you that have been using Windows for years, remember it used to be called File Manager. And he said brilliantly then, Bill Gates said, it's just like File Manager. Like, you browse your computer just like you browse the internet. That's what a browser is, and that's why we should be allowed to bundle it. And it was brilliant because he then renamed Windows, the File Manager, renamed it to Windows Explorer, because he had another product called Internet Explorer. And even today, if you go into the Windows Explorer, which is like the file manager, and you type in a web address, it'll, basically go to the internet. If you have TCP/IP turn on, whatever, internet on. And so that's what Bill Gates did. That's why they renamed it. And I think that the best technology companies are not the ones with the best products. It's the ones with the best marketing, always. Yeah. And all of you that have Android handsets, you know what I'm talking about.